welcome to Open Book, a production of EPTV and brought to you by Ellysian Press. I'm joined today by my partner, Jen Ryan, by Joe Murphy, who is our editor and in-house cover designer, Danielle DeVore, who is our editorial assistant, and by some of our absolutely fabulous writers, including John T. Poindexter, Luann Carroll, Mac Little, S.A. Larson, and Agnes Jane. Did I miss anybody? I think I got us all. This section is about cover art, and oh my gosh, is that just like, we could probably do hours and hours and hours and hours, but he's gonna give us a little bit of an overview. What have you got for us today, Joe?
One of the first things to decide about cover art in general is, if you are a writer, should you do your own cover art? Because there's lots of writers that do, and there's a lot of them that really shouldn't. 3 questions: should you do your own cover art? First question is, how much experience do you have with graphic design? The answer is, you've never done anything graphic design related, never done anything artistic in your life. This is probably not the time to do your own cover art. You can learn, absolutely. Again, it's never too late to start to learn how to do graphic design. But if you're doing your cover art for this book right now, if you don't have any experience with graphic design, not the time to do the cover. Second question: how familiar are you with Photoshop? Now, there are other programs out there, and many of them are free. However, in my opinion, there's really no substitute for Photoshop. There's a free program called GIMP, which has been around forever. But I can use, unless you are extremely talented, you're not going to get the same quality of cover using that free program as you would using a paid program. I use the full version of Photoshop. You actually subscribe to it. It costs about $20 a month. If you don't think you're going to be doing tons of cover art, and you're only going to be doing 1 or 2 books a year, you can get something called Photoshop Elements. It's a spared or kind of slimmed down version of Photoshop. Costs around $70. If you're not prepared to spend $70 to do your cover art, again, you probably shouldn't be doing it at all. Third question is, if you don't know Photoshop and you don't really have any experience with graphic design, how prepared are you to spend the 10,000 hours it's going to take to get comfortable using those programs? So you're going to have to, if you want to get good at something, you're going to have to study, you're going to have to practice. Again, when I was a kid, I would spend 3 hours a day drawing. And my mother was actually a painter, so I took painting classes with her as well. I have a pretty decent background in graphic design. Having said that, it took me a couple of years before I felt really comfortable doing book covers. I felt like when I first started, I was okay. I think I did some pretty decent covers, but it took me a couple of years before I really felt like I was competent. And when I look back at my older covers, I can really see a difference. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to show you a kind of a before and after. The first picture I'm going to show you is my very first book that I released. It's called Council of Peacocks, and I hired a cover artist to do the work. I had a very clear image in my mind of what I wanted the cover to be, and the cover artist did an amazing job of doing what I wanted him to do. It's not his fault, but what I wanted him to do was just horrible. So I'm going to show that to you. What you're looking at right now. Can everyone see that picture?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the cover art that was designed. It was a gentleman by the name of Dane Lowe. He does some amazing covers. This is not one of them. When I compare it to everything else on his website, is absolutely amazing. So I can't put any of the blame on this on him. This is what I told him to do. And I want to tell you why it doesn't work. The color scheme is very harsh. It's abrasive. The main character looks extremely angry, and it makes me want to back away from the book. Let's see if I can zoom out here. The author name itself is actually really hard to read if you put it as a thumbnail. Same thing with the actual title. It doesn't work very well when it's in thumbnail form. But again, this is what I wanted the cover to look like. When I got the image back, I actually put it out to all my friends and family and said, what do you think of this book? Problem. Don't ask your friends and family what they think of the book cover, because they're all going to like it. They're going to tell you that they like it, even though they don't. And again, unless your friends and family are graphic designers, they're not helpful. I spent about $350 on that book cover, and I used it for about 6 months because I realized afterwards it just didn't work. At that point, I decided I'm going to start doing my own book covers, and I spent about a good solid 6 months getting comfortable with the full version of Photoshop. I'd been using the Photoshop elements for several years. But then I started doing other book covers until I felt I was comfortable enough to go back to Council of Peacocks. And I'm going to show you what the newest version looks like and why I think it works better. So why I think it works better, again, the contrast is much bigger. Like you can see the author's name very clearly. Same thing with the title. If you put that into a thumbnail form, it's much clearer. The other important part was the color schemes. Something that many people that are trying to do their own covers, they skip over this part, but you need the color schemes to be current with your genre. And what I would invite you to do is go to a bookstore, an actual physical bookstore, and look at the shelves. You're going to see that certain color schemes and certain patterns of fonts repeat themselves. That's what's currently in trending. So if you're going to design your own cover art, you want something that's going to have high contrast. You need to figure out your placement. You need to figure out which fonts to use. These are things that it really takes practice. So what I was hoping to show from those two book covers is, the first attempt is my very first book trying to design what I want the cover to look like. After several years of practice, I came up with something very different. If you're not prepared to spend that much time, you're probably better off getting someone else to do the book cover for you.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Joe?
I have a quick question for Joe.
Sure.
Okay, so you mentioned even hiring someone to do cover art for you, you mentioned that the first time you did Council of Peacocks, you hired somebody, but because you had told them exactly what you wanted, it still didn't turn out ideally. Yes. So do you have any tips for authors then that decide, okay, I'm not going to do my own cover art, I'm going to hire somebody, but how to find balance between what, maybe the author is looking for and how much creative control to give the graphic designer so that you actually end up with a cover that works?
Okay, so I could actually talk about that for about 27 hours. Because I feel bad for writers, because there's some very good artists out there. Unfortunately, some of the really great artists are extremely expensive. And if you're an independent author, you sometimes don't have the resources to spend, $300 to $500 on a cover. And I've seen cover artists that will charge upwards of $1,000 per cover, which again, for most people is going to be outside the realm of what you can actually pay. So I'll pick one topic only, just to focus on for now, and we'll do other topics in other broadcasts. Keep it simple. I remember I had one, and I think this might have actually been one of Luann's covers many years ago, a couple years ago. Was it for, I think it was for Innocent Blood. If you remember that one?
Yes, it was. It was the first Innocent Blood cover.
Okay, so I'll pick on Luann for a second, because she had a very clear picture of what she wanted on the cover, and it was a lot. So I think you wanted a man in a trench coat standing in a graveyard. There was a gravestone in the backyard with a cross on it, and a raven and a falcon on. And I think there was a spear involved. And these were all things that were extremely important for the book. So she wasn't just throwing things out there. These were things that were important for the book. I think I did something close to what she wanted. I still had to take out some of those elements because it just didn't work. especially if you're looking at a thumbnail. Remember, a thumbnail is going to look like that big. You're not going to see all those details on a really small image. So we picked a cover that was put out for a while, and even though we all agreed on it, the publishers did, the author agreed on it, I thought it was okay. After maybe 6 months, we just kind of realized it didn't really capture the essence of the book. So we went back to it later, and I think it was, again, Luann had a better idea for it. She wanted a statue that was kind of crying blood, I should say. And that was a really quick cover, and the result was 1,000,000 times better.
Yeah,
So
gorgeous cover.
So what I would say for that, keep it simple. You want maybe 1 or 2 images at most that have to capture what the main essence of the entire book is. If you're not sure what that is, again, that takes practice. If you're not sure what it is, tell the graphic artist, here is the theme, here's what the book is about, and then let them play. Okay? If they're they're going to be able to take that idea and put it into an image. My problem for that first book cover is I went in thinking I knew what a book cover should look like, and I told him I want exactly this thing. That's what he gave me. So again, I take full responsibility because I thought I knew what I was doing, and I absolutely did not.
I will say that we've got some absolutely gorgeous covers here at Ellysian Press, and Joe has done all of our covers to date, plus he does all of my self-publishing covers. And we have just seen some absolutely stunning cover art come out over the last 3 years.
Thank you for joining us for another segment of Open Book. Don't forget to subscribe if you like what you saw today, and tell your friends.